Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. I'm your host, Scotty, and today we're talking about Wednesday night's 3-1 victory over Orlando City. I will be alone with the chat today, so I encourage all comments as they come in, and we'll go over them. But I wanted to spend an episode talking about that game because that's what we do on this channel. I have rewatched it. I'm a little under the weather, but I have my cough drops here in case I need them. And so let's just get into it. Let's start by saying Saur is in, I believe, Mauritania, planting wells for people that need it. Digging wells maybe is more appropriate, or I don't know, the Gobi Desert or something to that nature. So Saur's unavailable for today, and so we're just going to get into it. Let's start with a couple quick hitters not related to that game. And let's start with the national team call-ups. I know it's been a long time since we've had to think about the international windows, but they are back, and they start immediately after Sunday night's trophy game against Seattle in Seattle. And Inter Miami has a pretty big list of players going on international duty that I think is surprising because it's been a while since we've had this many call-ups. Obviously, Lionel Messi, if he's healthy through Sunday, going to go with Argentina. Benjamin Cremaschi called up to the USA's U20 team. I believe they're getting really close to that Club World Cup, which is coming up in a few months. And for Cremaschi, leader of that team, still a big part of that project. A couple others that aren't surprises: Talasco Segovia for Venezuela. David Ruiz back with Honduras. Obviously, we all know he had an injury for several months that kept him out of that squad. Fafa Picault with Haiti gets the call up. And then the big one, it seems confirmed. I know he made the preliminary list, but it seems like Jamaica is calling up Ian Frey for his first ever international cap. Again, he made the preliminary list, and that was making the rounds a couple days ago, but it seems like he's getting called up to the first team as best as I can tell in this moment. And if that's the case, Ian Frey is going to be making his international debut, hopefully, over the next week and a half. And that is tremendously awesome. I always dreamed that it would be for the U.S. men's national team, but I think the ACL injuries probably took him off the map for long enough for that to become very difficult, especially with the World Cup coming up next summer. And Jamaica, I believe, in line, maybe not in line, but with the potential to make it out of CONCACAF. In fact, let me check that real quick. That could be like a really special moment for him, and I know that Jamaica's wanted him for a long time, and so for him, it's an incredible moment. I'll be honest, I don't know how CONCACAF is doing their World Cup qualifying this cycle because the USA is not involved, so I will not embarrass myself by trying to explain it live, but a number of players going on international duty next week, and I think that is really cool. The one player I couldn't get any information on was Noah Allen. As you guys may remember, in the spring, he switched to Greece and took part in their U21 camp. I'm not sure if he was called up for this window. I'm not even sure if the Greek U21 team is having a window. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll get updates on that in the next couple of days. Nick Smith says, aloha. Pleasant surprise. Okay, guys, let's get into this game and start by saying there is no Heartbeat Award tonight or this afternoon, but I did want to recognize Sergio Busquets, who had his 100th appearance for Inter Miami on Wednesday night. He becomes the fourth player in Inter Miami history, and it is one of those milestones that's going to become less relevant over time. But for Busquets, who just arrived just over 2 years ago to already hit 100, it just shows his ability to consistently stay healthy and available and all of those other great things that we appreciate him. And of course, every time he's not on the field, we notice his absence. So I did want to make a note of him. Saur did record some awards for us, so we'll still have awards. But as a guy that is maybe contemplating retirement, hopefully not, I think this is a meaningful milestone for at least Inter Miami. It puts him in sort of rare company. Okay, let's get into the game because I had some thoughts on it Wednesday night after the game, and we talked about it with the Raw reaction, but I did rewatch it yesterday, and I feel a lot different about a lot of different things. So let's get into it because I know there's a number of talking points. I have my notes, but if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, put it in the chat, and we will get to it. My sense after the game on Wednesday night was that Inter Miami was fairly thoroughly outplayed in the first half of that game. Upon rewatch, I don't think that's the case. I thought for 20 minutes they were pretty much beaten up. Their lines were too far apart. Orlando City did they had an easy job pushing the ball through that midfield and creating opportunities. Ojeda had a near post opportunity, and Gulo had a near post opportunity. Muriel gets a shot that Lujan blocks, but he makes a nice play on it. Like, they were creating opportunities. That 9th minute moment where Ojeda goes near post and Starry makes a really nice save. Another one I wanted to mention. First, maybe 18, 19, 20 minutes, I thought that game was going exactly like the last two games had gone. Inter Miami too far up the field, too much space in between the lines. Orlando City able to play through it way too easily. On rewatch, it does ease off and become much more of a balanced back and forth game after the first 20 minutes. One couple moments I wanted to mention. 14th minute, Schlegel, the center back for Orlando City, has a foul on Luis Suarez. And I think if that was not in the 14th minute, it would have been a yellow card. Suarez coming down that left side, taps it past Schlegel, and Schlegel just fouls him, and it's stopping a promising attack. Now, if that happens in the 64th minute, I think it's a yellow card. It happens in the 14th minute, and so it's not. But I think that would have been a yellow card challenge, and I wanted to mention that because I think that's going to be relevant when we get to conversations about the refereeing in this game. Just for anyone trying to remember, there was another moment about a minute later where Suarez and Messi kind of both fall on the floor, and there's a handball on Messi, and it looked like maybe there was a foul, and it wasn't. That's not the moment I'm talking about. It's about 45 seconds earlier where Schlegel fouls Suarez on a promising attack. Anyways, just want to make note of that because we will come back to it later. 18th minute, a yellow card is given to Brecalo, the left back for Orlando City. It's a small touch on Rodrigo de Paul. De Paul absolutely makes the most of it, and so for any Orlando City fans saying that is not a yellow card, I agree with you. I think that was a really soft yellow. Much more realistic yellow comes about a minute later on Eduardo Atuesta, and I thought that really killed the momentum for Orlando City. 20th minute on, I thought they were much more reserved in how they were playing. I think a couple yellow cards made them back off with their physicality a little bit, and Inter Miami was able to get into the game. 20th minute, there was another opportunity off of an Inter Miami set piece where they get the ball forward, and Jordi Alba has to make a really late challenge back. And if he doesn't get there, not a challenge, but he ends up passing it back to a star. But if he doesn't get there, it's like a 2-on-0 kind of breakaway. But then after the 20th minute, I thought they really settled in. And by they, I mean Inter Miami. 22nd minute, they had a moment from De Paul where he has a really nice shot on goal, and it's pushed away by Pedro Gallese. But it was just the first sign of Inter Miami starting to get back into it. 31st minute, Suarez has a nice moment where he gets the ball to the right of the net, kind of does his body fake, cuts inside on Robin Janssen, and takes a shot, tries to curl it into that far post. He does put it just wide, but again, it's just Inter Miami starting to get back into this game. It's not all Orlando City all over them. And in the moment and on the night, it did feel like just because that first 20 minutes was so one-sided in the way Orlando City wanted to play, I think a lot of us kind of extended that to the entire first half. But I do think after about 20 minutes, it really became sort of an even matchup. And of course, that means Orlando City got their opportunities too. Angulo near post in the 33rd minute, but Ustari gets down and makes the save. 42nd minute, there's a ball over the top to Jordi Alba, who puts it into Messi, but Maxi Falcone is sort of in the way, and I want to come back to that in a few minutes. And then in the 45th minute, first minute of stoppage time in the first half, that's when Orlando City gets the breakthrough. Luis Muriel with a pretty nice entry pass to Marco Pasalic. Falcone is in position to make a play. He gets a foot to it, but the foot pushes the ball right into Pasalic, who bodies it down and then has an easy opportunity on goal from inside the penalty box with no one in the way. Puts it in the back of the net. There was controversy of whether the ball hit the hand. If it hits the hand, it's an automatic no goal because it's an own goal. It's a handball. There's no natural position, anything like that. When there's a goal immediately after a ball touches a hand, it's automatically a handball in the box. So if it had hit his arm, even if it wasn't a natural position, it still should have been called off. They did look at it a little bit on VAR. I think it hit his hand. I think it hit his forearm, but I can understand why VAR did not call it clear and obvious, and they let the goal stand. And I think that contributed to Inter Miami's feeling that first half did not go according to plan. Again, for the first 20 minutes, it was really, really tough for Inter Miami. But they did get their footing, but it doesn't really matter because they go down 1-0 into the half, and probably a deserved 1-0 for Orlando City. I should also mention there was a moment earlier in that half where Angulo has a one-on-one with, it's the 23rd minute. It's off a corner by Inter Miami. Orlando City gets the breakaway, and Angulo gets the ball into the box, 1v1 with Ustadi, and he puts it wide. I did want to sit on that one for a moment on set pieces, and it goes back to this Maxi Falcone in the box, which was also sort of off of a set piece play. Ian Frey, on that 23rd minute moment, is a one-man defensive piece. He's the last man on set pieces to protect against a transition. And I have no idea why it's Ian Frey and not Maxi Falcone and Gonzalo Lujan, when Ian Frey is a much more dangerous piece in the box if you're going to put balls into the box. So that's something I've been wondering for a couple games now. Why do we consistently have Falcone and Lujan, who have never shown they can be a threat in the box on set pieces, instead of having them back defensively and letting Ian Frey be in the box, who we have seen be a threat on set pieces? So I didn't really understand that. I don't really know why Maxi Falcone's in the box later on. Like, it just seems to me like you're not putting your most threatening pieces in the box on set pieces, and instead you're using some of them just because they are center backs, and that's a traditional role for a center back. But we know our center backs are not particularly tall. They're not particularly physical, so I don't really understand that. There was another moment I wanted to mention. Right before the game, Taylor Twellman on the broadcast, it's actually the first 20 seconds of the game, and he says, and I quote, "Miami will win if they dictate the tempo with the ball at their feet." And I thought that first half was very much not that. It was very much them chasing the ball. It was very much them not under control. Orlando City playing the way that Orlando City wanted to play. Very spread out, and I know that's not a traditional Orlando City style, but in this game where they know they have the athletic advantage, I think it's a style they're comfortable playing against Inter Miami. Anyways, into the second half. I thought everything changed in that regard. Again, Taylor Twellman, first 20 seconds. Miami will win if they dictate the tempo with the ball at their feet. And I thought in the second half they did a much, much better job of controlling the tempo of the game, and they did it with possession. I took a real moment in that 14th minute to mention this Schlegel foul, Rodrigo Schlegel foul on Luis Suarez, that I think probably should have been a yellow card, because in the 49th minute, Baltasar Rodriguez takes on Rodrigo Schlegel, and he gets fouled, and it's a yellow card for Rodrigo Schlegel, which, in my opinion, should have been his second yellow card. And so when we get in 15 minutes later to that second yellow for Brecalo, and he gets sent off, or I guess 25 minutes later, I actually think there's probably reason to say that Orlando City already should have had a player sent off. And the fact that it ended up being Brekalo may seem unfair because, again, I do think that first yellow for Brekalo was pretty soft, but I think they should have had one sent off already. And this is sort of one of those ball doesn't lie type moments. 52nd minute, 55th minute, a couple nice crosses by Yannick Bright, especially that 55th minute. It's Lionel Messi putting the ball over the top to Yannick Bright, and he heads it back in. And it's just, again, this development of Yannick Bright being a potential talent in the box and getting forward and making runs out of the midfield. He made a nice run out of the midfield in the 52nd minute that led to a cross. Suarez kind of dives for it, and there's no one else in the box to make a play on it. But again, it's just like these moments of quality that if Yannick Bright can continue to do that, guys are making different runs because they know Bright will put it into the box. So a couple moments from him that I really liked and I wanted to point out because you guys know I love talking about Yannick Bright. And then 56th minute, Angulo versus Sergio Busquets. This is the controversial one that a lot of Orlando City fans would have complaints about, and I think that's pretty fair to put it. It is Angulo 1v1 versus Busquets at the edge of the box. Angulo on the left side pushes the ball centrally and tries to run around Busquets. Busquets kind of steps into his way and makes it it's like a pick. It is inside the box. It's probably called a foul if it's outside the box. What I will say is that is generally a situation where you have a higher standard for a penalty for a foul inside the box. He does push the ball away from goal. So he's inside the box. He's trying to go around Busquets. He pushes it centrally, but also back. He's taking the ball away from goal. Gonzalo Lujan is coming back into the picture. I think it's probably a foul, but I can understand why the referees did not call that a foul. I would be very disappointed if I was an Orlando City fan. Probably feel hard done by it, but as we will get to later in the game, what goes around comes around in that regard. 57th minute, there's a great ball in by Jordi Alba that Suarez, I guess, tries to hit it with his stomach, isn't able to. But I thought this was the first sign of Inter Miami really crouching in on Orlando City and then them getting the ball to Jordi Alba to put crosses into the box. That 57th one was a fantastic cross, and Suarez just kind of whiffed on it. And then the big one comes in the 74th minute. Jordi Alba crossed into Tadeo Allende, who had come on about 5 minutes earlier. He's grabbed because he beats Brekalo into the box. And they're kind of tussling, but clearly David Brekalo is pulling him back. Allende gets his head on it. It is, I think, high. May have been saved by Gillese, but it's clearly a foul. And given the situation, it's a dangerous opportunity that the foul stopped. It is worthy of a yellow card, and of course, that's Brekalo's second. Again, I think Brekalo probably didn't deserve that first yellow, but I think Rodrigo Schlegel probably deserved 2 yellows in this game. So everything comes around, it goes around. I think for Orlando City to hyper-focus on these 2 moments is fair in what you would do as a fan, but I think over the course of the game, everything kind of evened out. And then, of course, that's a penalty. Lionel Messi with a little bit of a nervous penalty, but he makes it in the 77th minute, and so Inter Miami kind of survives pretty good there. And then Orlando City kind of has to go for defense and hope for penalties. In the 80th minute, they took off Pasalic and Luis Muriel, who were dangers in this game, especially in that first half, and instead they had to replace their left back and had a little bit more speed in Rodrigo Enrique up top, but they took off 2 of their big penalty takers, and I thought that was tough. And then as we get into Inter Miami scoring a second goal, you no longer have 2 of your best goal scorers in the field. And so you understand why Orlando City made that decision, but decisions have consequences. I did want to note that it was the 82nd minute that Jordi Alba grabs his hamstring, and he still played another 15 minutes after that. So if anyone was worried about Jordi Alba's hamstring, I think we can assume that it's not going to be anything too serious. 84th minute, Allende, another Jordi Alba cross into Tadeo Allende. He gets to the ball first. He does put it high, but Galese just punches him in the head. He misses the ball, punches him in the head. And so as we talk about not getting a penalty in that 56th minute, you can kind of understand why the referee wouldn't have given it, because he pushes the ball away from goal. We know Sergio Busquets is very good at not getting fouls called against him, and is very good at getting fouls called for him. You can kind of understand the situation that leads to not getting a foul in the 56th minute. You can understand the situation not getting a foul and what would have been a penalty called here in the 84th minute on Tadeo Allende. Goalkeepers they're given a latitude in a way that probably they shouldn't. Hopefully Tadeo Allende is okay, but it kind of, again, it's this idea of what goes around comes around, and just because you didn't get one call doesn't mean that the whole thing is against you. I thought Orlando City's supporters and players were pretty focused on the two calls they didn't get, but didn't focus on the calls they did get. That kind of evened everything out. There's another moment in the 87th minute where Jordi Alba goes near post. De Paul pushes it to him, and it's one of those situations where Jordi Alba's clearly going to look for Messi coming around the corner, but Messi gets tackled on the play, so he goes near post. I thought it was a nice attempt and a clever, quick think to try and put an opportunity on goal and not waste the situation, but it's a little wide. Doesn't end up mattering because a minute later, Messi pops it over the top to Jordi Alba. It is intercepted by Alex Freeman, but it is only sort of deflected a couple yards, and Jordi Alba is able to get back on it, taps it into Messi's path. Messi collects, and then a quick dump off back to Alba, who taps it forward into space. Messi bursts through 3 defenders and comes out the other side with the ball, and then puts it in that corner for the winner. It's a fantastic play by Lionel Messi. This is one of those, the penalties, the confidence in penalties, the free kicks, they are all special, but the moments where he is able to just run through 7 guys in that box and still come out the other side with the ball and a goal, I think those are the most special moments that he has. And then Orlando City, they're down 2-1 at this point. They take off some of their midfielders and the defender. They put on some guys going forward. Duncan Maguire makes his return because they're desperate for a goal. And before they even have a chance to really set up their new structure, Inter Miami just plays right through them. De Paul has the key pass that unlocks Segovia down the left side. Segovia, I wanted to give him credit on this play because it is so easy for a young player to see glory and to just try and whip a shot into that far corner or whatever. He takes the very calm, patient approach, crosses over Alex Freeman, has sort of a delayed touch to pull Rodrigo Schlegel in, and then still is able to get a tap to Suarez, who then plays it into the space for Segovia, who has a quick chip into the back of the net. And Inter Miami gets that 3-1 victory that sends them into the Leagues Cup final. And so for Inter Miami, it was 75 nervy minutes, but 20 very exciting minutes at the end of the game. And a lot of players come out looking like heroes in this game. Calarec says it was not a handball. That's fine. ST says Argentina jersey looking good. Yeah, it was a gift. I just got it today, so I thought I'd wear it on the stream. Feels a little icky because I'm still a U.S. fan, but it was a gift, and I wanted to give it a chance. Calarec says if the ball doesn't lie, Orlando would have gotten a clear penalty. Well, again, I think that's my point, is it all comes back, right? They didn't get a penalty for Angulo, and Inter Miami doesn't get a penalty for Tadeo Allende getting hit in the side of the head. The second yellow card, I mean, it's tough because that first yellow card was pretty weak on Brekalo, but I thought Schlegel had a couple yellow cards in this game. And so for me, it all kind of went full circle. Paolo says if Masha actually rotated the squad more often, Miami would be in an even better place right now. Absolutely. We've seen these guys have talent. We'll get into some of the changes he made for this lineup, but it was it was really fun to see some different names in the starting 11 make an impact, and then some of the guys we normally see start come off the bench and make a big impact. So, yeah. Henry says Baltasar is fast. RDP is slow, but Boosie for years the same level. Okay. Again, guys, it's just me on this one, and I'm a little under the weather, so it's not going to be super long. But I did want to go through some of the big moments. I think we talked about the refereeing. I can understand why Orlando City fans feel hard done, but I think on the whole it was pretty even. He was pretty yellow card happy, but I thought that went both ways. Busquets gets a yellow card, Suarez gets a yellow card, Lionel Messi gets a yellow card, Ian Frey gets a yellow card for all things that could have been not a yellow card in other situations over the course, with a different referee. So, again, I thought it all kind of evened out on the whole. And, of course, if you're an Orlando City fan and it's a semifinal and you lose it because you get a red card, that's, of course, devastating. But I just didn't feel like they were hard done in some extraordinary way. On Orlando City, I still think that's a very dangerous team that we have to worry about come playoff time. That front four is electric, it's athletic, it's very smart, it's physical, and our center backs are not necessarily up to handling that on their own. And so for Inter Miami, they had too much depth in between the lines in this game, especially early, and that was their problem over the first two games. They were able to solve that. Solve that's probably the wrong word. They were able to be more compact as the game went on, especially going into that second half where they were not just compact, but compact high up the field. And that went to Orlando City, who inexplicably, seemingly from the get-go in that second half, decided we're going to sit back and play a much more defensive role. I didn't see this on the first watch, but because I did think Orlando City dominated the first half. It was really only about 20 minutes. And so as you get into the second half of the first half, the last 20 minutes of the first half, Oscar Pereira, the Orlando City coach, is maybe seeing this as much more of a back and forth game. They think maybe if we sit back, we try and hit on the counter, we might be able to get a second. They do almost with Angulo on that the controversial call with Busquets. But ultimately, when you sit back against this Inter Miami team with the number of players that can unlock a defense, from Busquets to Messi to De Paul to Jordi Alba to Suarez to Segovia when he comes in, to eventually Allende, as we saw, it's a recipe to be scored on it, and you'd have to be really lucky, I think, to pull that out for a whole half. And obviously Orlando City couldn't. They are a pretty good defensive team. They always have been under Pareja, so maybe if they'd stayed at 11 men, they never would have. But ultimately, I think that decision cost them, and that back line was not up to the task, especially once they went down to 11 men. Anything else on Orlando City? I mean, we had to win this game. Not just for pride, not just for getting into the finals, not just for qualifying for the CONCACAF Champions Cup, but for not losing to Orlando City 3 times. That is not something that happens a ton in the MLS, and Inter Miami couldn't let that happen. This team is too good. There are too many talented players. They were too healthy in this game, and I know they weren't fully healthy. Not every guy felt 100%, but every player was available, save for maybe Alan Obando. So there was no excuses in this game at home to not put out a performance worthy of victory, and they did that, and now they have a chance to play for a title. And I say this a lot when it comes to Inter Miami's tournament runs, but if you want to be champions, you have to play like champions. And they did that last night against a team that I think is a very good matchup against them. And they were able to come out on top because they have great players and they play like champions. So hopefully they can carry that into Sunday, and we can celebrate another trophy for Inter Miami. As far as the substitutions in Javier Mascherano, obviously with Tadeo Allende, they realized that they could attack that back post. There was a couple times, and I mentioned this in the post-game show, but there's a couple times where Jordi Alba collects the ball and he is just looking at the back post. he almost always looks at Suarez, looks at Messi, but instead this time he was looking to the back post, and that was clearly something Inter Miami identified as a weakness for Orlando City. A couple times he did it for Ian Frey, a couple times he did it for Tadeo Allende, and it came through in the clutch. So for Inter Miami's coaching staff, I wanted to give them credit for identifying that. Jordi Alba, credit for being able to put that where he needed to put it. On the whole, I'm not sure I love the start and the game plan to this one because I think Orlando City is uniquely qualified to push Inter Miami in ways that I don't want to be pushed. But I kind of thought they should come out a little more defensive. They didn't really do that, but they played like champions, so it didn't matter. As far as the substitutions, Baltasar came off, and we'll talk about him more as we get into awards. Baltasar came off in the 65th minute. I thought he had a really nice showing. Tadeo Allende comes on. We have long talked about Tadeo Allende being a guy that needs to get a little bit of time off and out of the starting 11, that he doesn't need to be in there every game, and it's for his own confidence. And the first time he comes out of the starting 11, he goes in for 25 minutes and still has a confidence-earning type performance. And that's the type of thing that now makes you feel like he can go back into the 11 and give you something over the course of 90 minutes or 75 or whatever. So I think it was stubbornness that was keeping Mascherano from giving Tadeo Allende a chance. Maybe he didn't feel good about the other options, but ultimately he is willing to make this change in a huge game, and it paid off for him, not just with the starting 11, but with Tadeo Allende coming off the bench. And then Tedesco Segovia, I thought this was a bold choice from Javier Mascherano. I wanted to give him credit for this as well. He is down a goal, 73rd minute. He takes off a center back in Gonzalo Lujan, and he puts on Tedesco Segovia, and he does that without sacrificing one of his other attackers, which is not something we've always seen from him. He takes off a center back. He moves Busquets into that role, knowing Busquets can still control the game from there, trusts him to do the work in transition defensively, but still gets another high-quality player on the field. I thought that was bold of him for a young coach to feel like he could disrupt his structure and still get the result, and it absolutely worked. So I wanted to give him kudos for that as well. Again, guys, I'm sick, so we're going to keep this on the shorter side, and I think that will let us go to awards, but first let's get back to the chat. Henry says, we had the same feeling of Messi's debut match against Cruz Azul, a free kick goal in final moments. The atmosphere was the same on Wednesday night when he scored. Wow. Yeah, I mean, when he goes into his take over the game mode, it's special. Chip says, for those who say Busquets is slow, he was never fast, even in his youth. That is not why he's important to this team. Absolutely. I think people that say Busquets is over the top because he gets, there was even a moment in this game where I believe it was Pasalic who just kind of dribbles past Busquets. And it's like it does happen once in a while, once a month, maybe twice a month, but everything else he gives you is such high quality that you live with that, and you trust your defenders behind him to make a play. You trust your goalkeeper, and it ended up not hurting Inter Miami in this game. Gonzalo Lujan made a big block on that one. Natalia says, just joined. Where is Saur? Saur is in, I believe, I don't know, somewhere saving the world, digging wells for people. He's not available today, out of town. And then Natalia says, get well soon, Scotty. Thank you. And yeah, I addressed Saur earlier in the show and the Argentine kit earlier in the show. Yeah, if it looks good, take a screenshot because I'm not sure I'll wear it too much on an Inter Miami podcast. But it is a Lionel Messi Argentina kit. And I do like this World Cup logo. It looks good. So I'll allow it for this one. Okay, let's get to awards. And we'll start, as we always do, with Man of the Match. For those that haven't seen the show before or listened, we give out 6 awards after every game, a hair in the match, a heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. So today, I will be starting with the Man of the Match, and I'm giving it to Lionel Messi. Of course I am. Not only was he 2 goals, brace man returns, he did it without being 100%. I thought he looked great in the second half. He is going to be ready to go for the final. He came into this game after missing much of the last 2 or 3 weeks, And he didn't do it because he felt 100%, but he did it because he was 100% committing to winning this game. I thought from the 60th minute on, he was the best player in the world. Had a little bit of a hard time getting into the game in the first half. I thought that had more to do with the game state than Messi. And he even mentioned this after the game, that he started to feel better as he got into the second half. And I thought the last 30 minutes he was just dominant. Not a surprise that he's able to put away the winner. Gets the penalty. A little bit of a nervy penalty for him, but again, a nervy penalty for Messi is still going to be a goal. So 2 goals, was instrumental in the comeback. And he just looked like the best player in the world. And I don't know anyone can say anything otherwise. He should be available and healthy for the final on Sunday. They do travel to Seattle, which is a tough trip. And then he'll go on Argentina duty. I know that's a big one because it's the last, I think it's the last competitive game for him in Argentina, because this is the end of World Cup qualifying. So I'm sure it'll be a big deal for him to be available for that as well. And then maybe we can give him a game or 2 off as we get into the final stretch of this season. But as far as Wednesday night, I thought he was the best player in the world for the last 30 minutes. No doubt about it. Okay, Saur, what have you got for us for the heron that flew north?
All right, Scotty, you've given me the job of choosing the heron that flew north. This was a tough game to pick a heron that flew north from, because I believe everyone had a above average performance. The first half, the players tried, the structure was too spread out, and there were some issues. Second half, I think everyone stepped up, was a lot more involved. We took the game to Orlando and eventually won. So slightly harsh to pick a heron that flew north award. But for me, there were 2 players who stood out, and the one I'm going to give it to is Rodrigo de Paul. I think the midfield was a glaring issue in this game, like the previous games that we've played against Orlando City. There was just too much space for them to run into. They had the run of the midfield, and their offensive players were time and again just able to run with the ball at our defense, which put us under pressure. And I thought this would be another one of those games where Inter Miami concedes 2 early goals in the first half and then just loses the plot. Rodrigo de Paul was a major part of that. I think his positioning was off. I thought he played way too out wide. Maybe he should have been involved a lot more centrally. Was not able to link up well with Bright or Sergio Busquets, who I also thought in the first half were poor. Overall, I think Rodrigo de Paul's lack of calmness on the ball, lack of effectiveness, and lack of involvement put a lot of pressure on the Inter Miami midfield. I don't think it's a personnel issue. I do think all 3 of these players, Bright, Busquets, and Rodrigo de Paul, complement each other really well. Bright as the number 6, Busquets as the deep line playmaker, the 8, whatever you want to play him in, and then Rodrigo de Paul as the number 8. Deploy him slightly more centrally, and maybe you get the better output from him. I think in this game, he was just missing, didn't have a particularly good game. And for that reason, I will give him the Heron That Flew North award. Let me know what your thoughts are.
So, Heron That Flew North goes to Rodrigo de Paul. I will say, Saur knew he would not be available for this episode, so he recorded those right after the Raw reaction on Wednesday night. He did not have a chance to rewatch the game. And I will say, I may have influenced his decision. I spoke a lot about how I thought Rodrigo de Paul's performance on Wednesday night was pretty poor. I don't feel the same way after the rewatch. There was, in my head, like 7 or 8 moments where he just passed the ball to nobody, put it over the top to nobody, and it felt very disconcerting. I didn't see it as much on the rewatch. It felt like 3 or 4 moments, and it was not great, but it wasn't terrible. He had a couple nice moments. He had a shot that Gillespie had to make a nice save on. He had a ball to, I believe Jordi Alba that could have gone to Suarez. That could have been a goal that we would have been highlighting as a key play. So I thought my original opinion on his performance was pretty poor, and I think I said that on the Raw reaction, and that's why we put a big disclaimer at the beginning of the Raw reaction that this is initial thoughts and not something we've spent a lot of time thinking back on, because on the rewatch I thought he was solid. Some of those mistakes were certainly there, but it was like 3 or 4. And if this was a young player, if this was David Ruiz, if this was Benjamin Kramaski, I think we would have brushed those aside as that's what he is as a player. And so, of course, you want more from De Paul. I think we haven't necessarily seen him at his absolute best since those first game or two. But I didn't think this game he was terrible. I probably would have gone with Maxi Falcone, who I know is the other player that Saur was considering giving the award to. So I wanted to give De Paul a little bit of credit for a solid, if underwhelming, performance, but not outright bad. There was only a couple moments where it looked really misplaced. The other thing he mentioned, De Paul playing centrally. This is something I heard from another podcast, and I just wanted to talk about because maybe it was the post-game broadcast. Maybe it was from the Leagues Cup recap thing about Rodrigo de Paul playing centrally. And I felt like this was kind of a lazy analysis because if you rewatch the game, Rodrigo de Paul is active in all of the ways that you would want him to be active. In fact, in possession, he spends a lot of time in the central parts of the pitch. When he's out right, actually to the detriment, I think, of Inter Miami's structure in some ways. But he's able to still be a threat in pressing. He's still able to be a defensive machine. He's still in position to be a weapon in transition, a weapon in possession, and a guy that's going to be a high caliber, high class player moving the ball forward. So for me, I didn't think that he. I don't think him playing as that right midfielder is hampering his ability to impact the games in any meaningful way. The other thing I want to say is, for Inter Miami generally, the goal shouldn't be to get the absolute most out of Rodrigo de Paul. The goal should be to get the absolute most out of Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez, and then the rest of the team should form around that. De Paul is like 4th or 5th on the pecking order, and that's fine. He's still a great player, but if he has to sacrifice 10% of his game to make the whole team work, like he's a guy that should be doing that. And that's the same for Yannick Bright. It's the same for Ian Fred. It's the same for Telasco Segovia. If they have to sacrifice a little bit of what they are in order to make the whole team function, that's absolutely what should be happening. And again, I just want to finish by saying I didn't think he was terrible in this game, but certainly underwhelming, considering the price tag, considering the hype, considering. Listen, I think when he came in first 2 games, he looked like a player that was going to fit right in with the Barcelona 4. And maybe we should remember that as good as he is and as high of a level as he's played at, and he's a world champion, and he's a starter for Argentina, and he's was a starter at Atletico Madrid. Like Sergio Busquets is a generational defensive midfielder, and Jordi Alba is a generational best of the decade type left back, and Luis Suarez and Lionel Messi are obviously Suarez one of the best strikers of the last 25 years, and Messi best player ever. So I don't know if Rodrigo de Paul is quite at that level of talent, but also we've seen him do it and be pretty impactful already for Inter Miami. And so I guess seeing it more consistently would be nice. And is it a matter of him still adjusting? Is it a matter of him still finding his exact role? I'm sure he hasn't played much in a 4-4-2 as a right midfielder in the last couple of years. So maybe he's just adjusting to exactly how he's supposed to fit in, new teammates and all that stuff. So I don't want to overblow it, but I still think the jury's out exactly how good Rodrigo de Paul is going to be for Inter Miami. Okay, my first award is, and by the way, when we don't do the awards live, I think there's probably a little bit of lack of creativity in them, because I would never give this if Saur was with me live. But I'm giving the Let Jordi Be Jordi Award. Let Jordi Jordi Award. We have spoken about this a ton over the course of this season, and I don't think I've ever mentioned what I'm about to say. But over the last 6 weeks, Jordi Alba has been playing much more on the front foot. He's been allowed to be a much more offensive presence, and I think Inter Miami has been better for it. I think the results have been better for it. In this game, he was outstanding. I did consider him for man of the match because I thought he was as important to us winning this game as Lionel Messi. I know Messi gets the finishes and he has the incredible play that actually gets the winner. But Jordi Alba, in terms of turning the nature of the game into Inter Miami's favor, being a guy that you can just rely on for quality after quality after quality after quality on the crosses, on the decision making, on everything that he did right in this game. I thought he was fantastic. He is a special player. There's no doubt about that. And so we have seen this over the last 6 weeks. Javier Mascherano has let Jordi be Jordi. He's let Jordi do Jordi. He's let Jordi be the great player that he is. But when you do that and you do it repetitively, you're going to see performances like Wednesday night, where he was absolutely fantastic. So I wanted to give Jordi Alba an award. I thought he was like 1B for Heron in the match because I thought he was outstanding. And we'll leave it at that. Okay, Saur, what is your second award?
Okay, so my first award is the Italian Herb and Cheese Award. And that is actually the order that I place at Subway. And every time I order a sandwich, I go for an Italian herb and cheese with teriyaki chicken, for anyone who even cares. But regardless, in this game, there was only one sub that mattered, and that was Tadeo Allende. We've come a long way. After 3-4 Heron That Flew North awards, he's finally broken the jinx. And thankfully, Javier Mascherano didn't start him, so we didn't even have to consider him for the Heron That Flew North award. But he comes on around the 50th, 55th minute, and game changes. You make him the linchpin of your attack. He becomes that target man. I said it in the in the post-game Raw reaction, that it worked in Allende's favor that he was coming off the bench, because now he knew what the game state was. He understood exactly what instructions and what he had to do on this pitch to be productive. You put him at the back post, he waits for corners, and he just gets his head involved in the corners. He becomes that target man up top. Anything that comes long, he's the one who's chasing it down. Gets that penalty. Very much warranted. Could have won another penalty. I think he was the one who was responsible for everything good that happened in that second half as soon as Inter Miami was knocking on Orlando's door. Stretched the field out a bit, offered that vertical option, but boy, did he need that performance. And we've been clamoring for Javier Mascherano to give him a break, put him on the bench, not because he's a bad player. There is a player there. There is a talent there. You can see what his skill set is, what he brings to this team. You understand exactly what he can do. He's been a goal scorer at the start of the season, and his form has just completely dropped off a cliff. Needed this break, but just goes to show one game, not even that. You just put him on the bench, bring him on in like 50th, 55th minute, and look at the impact that he can make against tired legs. I still think there's a case to be made that you should play him slightly carefully. I know you would argue that he should go back into the starting 11, but if you can use him as a super sub for the next 2-3 games, build his confidence back up, allow him to get maybe a couple of goals or assists, I think he rediscovers the form that we saw in the first half of the season. Regardless, gets the goal, gets the assist for the penalty, and sets up Inter Miami's win, sets up Inter Miami's path into the final, and more importantly, the CONCACAF Champions Cup position. Tadeo Allende with the Italian Herb and Cheese Award. I hope you like that award.
Tadeo Allende with the Subway order for Saur. And I've mentioned it numerous times on this episode already, so I will keep this short. But he needed a break. He needed a break for his own sanity. And when he is given a chance off the bench, he built some confidence, and he's going to feel good after that performance. Maybe not quite on that left side of his head, or maybe the right side of his head from that Gillespie punch. But aside from that, I think he's going to feel good about how he played, and that might be the first time in months that he feels good about how he played. And so this is what you need to do as a coach. You need to find ways to give your players and put your players in positions to be successful. And that was finally what happened with Tadeo Allende on Wednesday night. Does he go back into the starting 11? Not necessarily. But I think the point is now you can start him again because he's going to feel good about being a positive contributor. And some of those moments where he's kicking the ball over himself and he's tripping himself and he's shooting 4 yards wide and his touch is taking the ball 4 yards out of where he needs to be. It's just, you can see it's a lack of confidence. He knows what he's supposed to do, but the body's not responding exactly like he thinks it should be. And that's confidence. This is a confidence game. And I think for the first time in months, I feel like he comes out of a game feeling good about what he did. And of course, he was instrumental into converting this game into a victory, right? He gets the foul on Brekalo that gets Brekalo sent off, that earns the penalty, that gives Inter Miami the equalizer, and then ultimately the game state that allows them to go win it in the final minutes. So Tadeo Allende, huge player in this game, and I know he's gotten a lot of criticism. I think there's a player there, and it's a matter of can we get him confident for the playoffs. But if anything, this should show Javier Mascherano that you don't have to start him, and you can still put together a good game plan. You can still put together a starting 11 that can win the game, and he can be a weapon, whether it's in the starting 11, whether it's off the bench. So I think Tadeo Allende has to feel good about where he's at right now. Okay, my fifth award is the audition. I'm giving it to Baltasar Rodriguez because he's in a game that was a cup semifinal and where Lionel Messi was the best player in the world and Jordi Alba was fantastic and Gonzalo Lujan had his best performance of the season and Sergio Busquets did his thing and Oscar Ustari made some nice saves. The one thing we really learned about this team is Baltasar Rodriguez, who gets his first start of the season. And I thought he looked good. I thought this was clearly, obviously the goal last Saturday was an incredible goal. And that got him started with 25 minutes off the bench, gets his first start. He carried that in. Some of that tight control on his ability to get out of danger, to set things up for his teammates, or at least to create an environment where Inter Miami has the ability to transition quickly. Like I thought that was great. He was aggressive in going at defenders. I don't know if we've seen the final product from him in terms of game creation. I don't know if we've seen him make incredible passes. We saw him play in a much more wide open setup in that first half where he was able to find the space and be an outlet to progress the ball, but certainly deferred to Messi when he was on the ball entering into the final third. So the next step is, can he be a guy that sets his teammates up for chance creation? Can he be a guy that scores goals consistently? Right? Is he good for one spectacular goal? Or is he going to be a guy that if you played him 30 out of 34 MLS games, he's going to come up with 15 goals? I think that's still to be determined. But in terms of his first time in the starting 11, I don't know how anyone could complain about it. Obviously, he's never done more than a 25, 30-minute cameo this season, so he was probably getting pretty tired by the end. He comes off in the 65th minute for Tadeo Allende, and ultimately Allende comes with the big moments, but Baltasar, I thought, looked good. And certainly if you see him in the starting 11 again over the next couple weeks, you will feel comfortable with him there. I want to see what he's made of, right? He's played maybe 200 minutes all in this season, maybe 250. So it's probably still too early to tell. Half of those minutes came when he was probably still injured, probably not ready to really play yet. But he looks quick. He looks athletic. He looks feisty defensively. On the ball, he's got some real quality. And so what he becomes from here, I think I'm very interested in. I'm more interested in now than I was even a week ago before that game last Saturday night where he had that banger of a goal. And then lastly, let's get to that final award.
Okay, my final award is the Soft as Silk Award, and that goes to Telasco Segovia. I think everyone who's been listening to us for a while knows I have a bit of a soft spot for Segovia. I think he's a brilliant player. Again, like Allende, he was given the night off, and I was very surprised that Javier Mascherano made this decision because on one of the biggest nights of Inter Miami's season, you don't play your big name player or the big acquisition or one of the players that's been very, very good for you since he's come into this team. And I thought it was a gutsy move. I wanted to see how he would utilize Baltazar Rodriguez, who obviously had a very good game against DC, had an impact with a goal. And Baltazar didn't do anything different in terms of his not impact, but the way he was utilized on this team. I thought the structure was very similar, and he was playing the Segovia role. But let's be honest, I thought Baltazar was good, but he wasn't Segovia. And Baltazar has other skill sets, other abilities that he excels at, much more speedy, gets involved in defense a lot more, can run at players. But there's only one player who's as silky can be. And for me, that's still Asko Segovia. I think other than the superstars that you have on the team, he's the most technically gifted player. He can play with the ball at his feet, and we saw that with the back and forth that he had with Messi. I thought that was a phenomenal goal and a cherry on top of what turned out to be a very good evening for Inter Miami, for scoring that third goal, for giving us a little bit of a respectable scoreline against Orlando, and for putting on a really good second half performance where I thought he was very much involved in the offense as soon as he came on. And I know we were a man up compared to Orlando, but still there was a lot to do, and Segovia's performance helped put a little bit of a ribbon on the performance. And I think he should start the next game just because he has that ability and that technicality that no other player, barring the superstars, have. And for me, Segovia deserves a well earned mention. So great goal for him, takes us into the final, and hopefully he can have just the same level of impact in the final against whoever we play. This is obviously pre recorded, so we'll see. That's it from me.
So, sixth and final award, soft as silk for Talasco Segovia. Again, I thought Baltasar was really solid in his performance. That has been Segovia's spot all season. I'm happy with Segovia coming off the bench for 30 minutes. If that's going to be his role, I'm happy with him starting. I think he's a real talent. And so for Inter Miami, especially if you need a spark, especially if you need to do something differently, I think taking Segovia off the field and putting Baltasar in is fine. But when you're talking about trying to control a game, like Segovia can certainly do that in a magnetic way that I don't know if we've seen from Baltasar yet. I do wonder if there's a way to play them both at the same time. It's a little hard for me to imagine, but certainly not impossible, and we'll see what comes on Sunday. But Talasco Segovia, as far as he's concerned, that goal, I mentioned it as I went through the breakdown, he was so calm and composed in the final moments, and it's so easy for a young player to just try sort of a miracle shot to try and get the winner, but he understands this moment. He understands where Suarez is. He understands where Alex Freeman and his momentum's taking him, and he's able to just casually make the right play against a desperate defense, and he ultimately puts them away and puts them down with a really nice performance and a really nice moment. Certainly, even over the last 20 minutes when he came on in the 73rd minute, Inter Miami was overwhelming Orlando City with numbers, and so he was certainly able to get available and be good on the ball and all of the things we've come to expect from Talasco Segovia because Inter Miami went with him as a midfielder with high quality, even a player that can get forward, and took off Gonzalo Lujan. So he started to overwhelm and create numerical advantages, but he took advantage of it because he's a good player. And so I think you give Segovia some real credit, and he gets the one that it's not the winner, but it's the dagger, and Inter Miami gets away with a 3-1 victory because of Talasco Segovia. So good award and a good finish to our award section. Any other players that I wanted to talk about? I thought Ian Frey had a little bit of a sloppy game. I thought overall he was fine, but there was probably 2 or 3 moments where he's going to rewatch the film and think, if only I did a little bit better there. There's a moment in maybe the 83rd minute, 80 in the 80s, where Jordi Alba goes back post to Ian Frey, and he chests it, and he tries to put a cross back in, but he mishits it. There's a couple moments in the first half where he and Rodrigo de Paul are not quite on the same page, and so it ends up being a turnover. So I thought overall it was solid, and he's maybe going to get his international debut in the coming weeks. So I think it's all positive for him, but he will be kicking himself a little bit for that. Yannick Bright, I thought he had a little bit of an underwhelming first half, but I thought he was really good in the second half, and so that'll do for me. Again, first 20 minutes, Inter Miami really struggling with the depth of their lines, and for him to be the guy that you're primarily asking to hold everything together, they were getting through a little too easily. But he still has a number of assists, and again, going into that second half, I thought he was much better. Going into that second half, I thought he had some real movements, getting into the box, making runs, and being a danger. So I wanted to give him credit for that, and I feel like I did that earlier. But first half, a little underwhelming. Gonzalo Lujan, I thought this may have been his best performance at Inter Miami. 0 mistakes, had 2 nice moments, and 0 mistakes. So again, for Gonzalo Lujan, like, claps to you. I have been very critical of your performances this year, but this was a good one. And then Ustari, same thing. Like, he was good. Ustari was very good in this game. He had some nice saves. That Angulo opportunity in, I believe, the 20th minute, where it's a one-on-one, he just stands right in the center still, lets Angulo make the decision, and makes it very difficult, forces him to make a really nice sort of curve it into the corner type shot, and a less experienced goalkeeper may have committed one way or the other, may have tried to get too big too early, and left some opportunities for Angulo to make a play, left his feet, etc., and then let Angulo dribble around him, something like that. Ustari just stood tall and made Angulo make the hard play, and he wasn't able to. So really nice game from Ustari, and again, he had some nice saves, especially a shot from Ojeda early on. Maxi Falcone, I thought, probably was the worst player. One of his bad games, and we've talked about his inconsistencies, but other than that, like, Inter Miami wins the game in a semifinal. I don't want to dwell too much on the worst performance. Busquets, I thought, was really good, and Suarez, I thought, was pretty good. So Suarez gets the assist on the Talasco Segovia goal, and was generally, I thought, pretty good in this game. So the only other player to play, Toto Aviles, comes on in the 90th minute, and just it doesn't really do much. So Inter Miami gets out of there with a 3-1 victory. Before we talk about this final, I want to go through the chat one last time. Bizrat says, I live in Seattle, conflicted in this final. Oh, are you a Seattle fan? But he does have tickets. That game will be on turf, by the way. Henry says Braceman is the man of the match, and I agree with that. Bizrat says the insider info is, the word on the street is, don't worry about the defense. Miami is going to score anyways. Just try to outscore them. They have a leaky defense. Interesting. Henry says, I just want to know if Messi plays against Seattle Sounders. He's 100% going to play and start in that game. Oh, maybe in the past. No, he hasn't played against Seattle yet. Bizrat says Seattle's missing 7 starters for injuries and suspensions, prone to seeing a red in a game. I wouldn't be shocked if Seattle sees a red card in the final. I will talk about them in a minute, but they have a lot of good players. I don't know if they have any great players, but they have a lot of good players, like good, solid players. Henry says RDP is not in the same as he's not in form at all. And then he says his prediction for the final is 4-1 Miami. Natalia says, do you guys see the same starting 11 in the final? Super sub Talasco and Allende again. To me, that's what the 11 is going to be, with the only question mark being Talasco or Baltasar, because whatever you thought of Baltasar's debut audition, his first start, Segovia also came on and was very impactful. So I could see either way. But again, if one plays 60 and the other plays 30, I think that's a trade-off anyone would be happy with, whichever way it goes. Jay says RDP has not looked good in the last couple games. That's when he first came on board. I agree with that. I'm a little surprised about his conditioning. The reputation was that he was an absolute workhorse, and it hasn't felt like that so far. And now that we're getting into Game 7, this weekend will be Game 8 with Rodrigo de Paul. I don't really know what the reason for that is. Artillery says the key will be in the middle of the pitch, Sergio, Bright, and RDP. Okay, for those that don't know, who I would consider Seattle's best defender, most talented defender, although he is red card prone. He got a red card in the semifinal against the LA Galaxy. He cleats up into the sort of calf region of Gabriel Peck, gets a red card, deserved a red card, and now he will miss the final. Played as sort of a left back, left-sided center back. I think he's their best, most athletic defender. He's a good player. I like him a lot. But he will not start this game because of the red card. He won't play in this game because of the red card. So that's a big loss for them defensively. Alex Roldan on the right back spot is fine. He's like a solid MLS player, not a weakness, but not really a strength, not someone to be super worried about. Jackson Reagan and Gomez in the middle. They're big. They're not particularly athletic. Jackson Reagan is fine. He's a solid player. Again, they have lots of solid players, but I don't know if they have a ton of super high quality. Jesus Ferreira is the striker, not a guy that I fear at all. The real strength comes through that middle line. Christian Roldan has been very good as a central midfielder this year, and Obed Vargas as a number 6. I think is an exceptional talent. Those are their two best players, in my opinion. So in the midfield, that's the concern, but neither of these guys are number 10s that are just going to run through you like a Martin Ojeda would, like a Vander Might. These are, Christian Roldan's a box-to-box midfielder, a very good one at this level, but a box-to-box midfielder, and Obed Vargas is a number 6. So can they make it difficult for Inter Miami offensively? Maybe, but in terms of goal scoring, I'm not as convinced. Paul Rothrock is a nice player, and Pedro de la Vega is really coming into his own, but again, it's a lot of like solid to good players, not anyone that I think is exceptional. Andrew Thomas, the goalkeeper, he's not the veteran Stephen Fry, but I think he'll start on Sunday. So, yeah, Reed Baker-Whiting, kind of a piece that comes off the bench for him. I think he will start in place of Nuhu. He's another nice, solid player, but he's a young kid. So I don't think this is a Seattle team that Inter Miami should fear. They've got a lot of nice, solid players. They will be at home. If Inter Miami brings their A game, they will win this game. I think that's sort of what it is. And if Inter Miami doesn't bring their A game, Seattle can pull this out. So that's my early prediction or preview. We will obviously do the pregame show before kickoff, but that's my early thoughts. And guys, this has already been an hour and 8 minutes. I was wondering if I was going to make it 45, so we will wrap it up there. Last couple things in the chat. Now, Natalia says this is the first MLS game that Seattle will see Miami, so hopefully it'll be a lot of fans, and hopefully they will have that intimidation factor. Hernan says, let's be honest, we got a lot of help making it to the final. Will depend on Messi again to win this game. Seattle has been a better team. In the Leagues Cup, certainly Seattle's been a better team. Inter Miami has gotten a lot of big moments. I don't know if anyone would call Inter Miami dominant. Certainly, we talked about some of the calls that went Inter Miami's way on Wednesday. 2 penalties against Tigres in the quarterfinals. We had to rely on last-minute goals by Chelo Weigand and Jordi Alba and a penalty kick to even get here. So certainly Inter Miami has not been dominant in this tournament, but talent for talent, Inter Miami is still a better team than Seattle, and I get the feeling guys like Lionel Messi, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, Rodrigo de Paul, these guys are going to play great on a title opportunity. And this is our first final since the U.S. Open Cup 2023. If you remember, Messi did not play that game. So this is a chance to get back on track for the whole season. They win this game, and they've won their first trophy. They've got a chance at 2 more, and you feel good. If you lose this game, well, I don't even think that's in the cards, so I wouldn't even go there. Last thing I wanted to mention, Inter Miami gets their berth into the CONCACAF Champions Cup for next season because of this game. They qualify as either first or second place in the League's Cup, and that gets them into next year's tournament. That is such a huge relief for Inter Miami. It means the Supporter Shield loses a lot of its desperation for the rest of the season. It means whatever happens from here on out for the rest of the season, this will not affect Inter Miami's ability to achieve all of their goals next year. If for some reason this year they hadn't qualified for the CONCACAF Champions Cup, if they fell off a cliff again in the last couple months of this season for whatever reason, and they don't qualify, then next year it doesn't matter if you have a new coach. It doesn't matter if you bring in a bunch of new players. They won't even have the opportunity to compete. Now, because they do this, even if they miss the playoffs this year, they can bring in a new coach and reset the roster, and they will still have an opportunity to go for it in 2026. So I thought that was, for me, a big stress reliever, and I am looking forward to that opportunity next summer. But for now, it's a title opportunity on Sunday night. It is the second game. I believe it's at 8 p.m. Eastern time. For anyone who doesn't know, it's going to be in Seattle, and Inter Miami has a chance to win their first trophy of 2025. Guys, thank you so much for joining in. We'll see you guys in the pregame show 1 hour before kickoff. But until then, have a lovely night. We'll see you next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.